Welcome, friends. Today we will touch on one of the most controversial and relevant topics. What happens if America adopts socialism? Socialism, as a concept, has always caused a lot of controversy and disagreement, especially in the context of a country like the United States. What exactly could change if a great power decided to change its economic course and adopt socialist principles? Let's dive into this topic together, consider various aspects, and try to figure out what consequences this may entail. Get ready for an exciting journey into the world of hypothetical scenarios and analysis of possible consequences. Why talk about socialism in America? An introduction to the topic of socialism in the United States is an understanding of the significance and relevance of this discussion. Talking about socialism in America is important not only because it is of interest to a wide audience, but also because it concerns the key principles on which society is built. America, known for its capitalist model, has always differed from other countries in its unique approach to economics and politics. However, recent decades have brought with them a growing interest in social issues such as inequality, access to health care and education. These trends are causing unrest in society and fueling a debate about whether socialism can offer an alternative to the current order of things. What were the previous attempts to introduce socialism in the United States? Past attempts to introduce socialist ideas in the United States are important for understanding the context and possible consequences. Although the United States has always remained a capitalist country, it has faced waves of the socialist movement several times. For example, at the beginning of the 20th century, socialist parties and organizations such as the Socialist Party of America and the Progressive Party were created, which actively promoted social reforms and fought for workers' rights. The Great Depression also sparked interest in socialism, with many Americans looking for alternatives to capitalism in search of solutions to economic problems. Although most of these attempts did not lead to radical changes in the country's economic system, they left a mark on the public consciousness and continued to influence discussions about socialism at the present time. What changes will take place in the economy during the transition to socialism? An analysis of the economic aspects of the adoption of socialism in America requires careful consideration of changes in the economic system. In the context of the transition to socialism, a number of significant changes can be expected. Government intervention in the economy. The system of socialism presupposes more active participation of the state in regulating the economy. This may include the nationalization of individual industries, the banking system, or other key sectors. Resource allocation. One of the main goals of socialism is a more even distribution of wealth and resources in society. This may mean imposing high taxes on the rich and businesses, as well as creating social programs to support the less well-off segments of the population. Collective ownership of the means of production. In a socialist economy, the means of production, such as factories and enterprises, may be collectively owned by the state or public organizations rather than in the hands of private owners. Economic planning. Unlike a capitalist economy, where market mechanisms play a crucial role in the allocation of resources, a socialist economy can use centralized government planning to determine production, priorities, and resource allocation. What changes will take place in the U.S. political system? The introduction of socialism in America will also lead to significant changes in the country's political system. These changes can have an impact on the system of government, political institutions, and political culture. Changing the structure of the government. In a socialist system, there may be an expansion of the role of the state and an increase in its powers in various spheres of society, including the economy, healthcare, and education. Political competition. In the context of the transition to socialism, political competition between different parties and groups may change. Instead of a confrontation between left-wing and right-wing parties, a rivalry may arise between those who support socialism and those who oppose it. The role of political parties. New political parties may appear, or the ideology of existing ones may change. Parties committed to socialist ideas may become more influential, while conservative parties may oppose the changes. Public participation. In a socialist system, public participation in the political life of the country may increase. This can manifest itself in the active participation of citizens in public debates, mass protests, and the activities of civil society organizations. These changes in the political system can generate both support and opposition from various groups and interests, which can lead to more acute political struggles and conflicts. How will socialism affect the lives of ordinary Americans? The changes associated with the introduction of socialism in America will directly affect the lives of ordinary citizens. This can lead to a number of social consequences: access to social services. The introduction of socialist programs can significantly improve citizens' access to social services such as healthcare, education, housing, and transportation. Increasing government spending on these areas can make these services available to more people. Fighting inequality. Socialist measures aim at combating economic and social inequality can reduce the gap between rich and poor. This may include the introduction of a progressive tax policy, an increase in the minimum wage, and an expansion of social assistance programs. Changes in labor relations. In a socialist economy, the nature of labor relations may change. This may include the introduction of a shorter working day or week, higher wages, and increased employee rights to collective representation. Cultural changes. The introduction of socialist ideas can lead to changes in the cultural life of society. This may include increasing attention to public and social issues, strengthening a sense of solidarity and responsibility towards society. What can you learn from the experience of other countries that have adopted socialism? The history of world socialism includes various examples of countries that experimented with socialist ideas at different times and in different forms. Studying the experience of these countries can provide valuable lessons and warnings for the potential introduction of socialism in America. Scandinavian countries. Countries such as Sweden, Norway, and Denmark are often cited as successful examples with social democratic model that combines elements of capitalism and socialism. They provide a high level of social services with a relatively high level of economic development. Cuba. Cuba is an example of a country that carried out radical socialist reforms after the 1959 revolution. Although Cuba's experiment with socialism has had its successes, it has also faced challenges such as limited political freedoms and economic difficulties. The Soviet Union. The experience of the Soviet Union shows that the radical introduction of socialism can lead to authoritarianism, economic decline, and violation of human rights. The history of the USSR warns against an overly rigid approach to socialism and the need to take into account the context and specifics of each country. Studying the experience of other countries makes it possible to better understand the advantages and limitations of socialism as an economic and political system, as well as to develop best practices for its implementation in a specific context. What arguments are put forward by opponents and supporters of socialism in America? The discussion about socialism in America raises a variety of arguments among both its supporters and opponents. Here are some of the main arguments put forward by both sides. Arguments of the supporters of socialism. Proponents of socialism argue that it is a system that better ensures social justice and equality of opportunity for all members of society. They also emphasize that socialism can help reduce the gap between rich and poor by providing more equal conditions for all. Socialism involves the introduction of social programs and guarantees, such as health care for all, education, and housing, which, in their opinion, can improve the quality of life of citizens. Arguments of opponents of socialism. Opponents of socialism believe that this can lead to a threat to individual freedom and personal initiative. As the state becomes more controlling, they argue that socialism can lead to a decrease in economic efficiency due to restrictions on entrepreneurship and innovation. Opponents of socialism fear that the expansion of the role of the state may lead to the strengthening of authoritarian tendencies and the restriction of political freedoms. Conclusions and possible scenarios for the development of events. So, talking about what will happen if America embraces socialism is important not only from an academic point of view, but also from a practical point of view. After considering the economic, political, and social aspects, as well as analyzing the experience of other countries, several conclusions can be drawn. The introduction of socialism in America will lead to significant changes in the economy, politics, and society. The effects of socialism can be diverse and depend on specific reforms and political decisions. The path to socialism in America will be full of challenges and obstacles, and its successful implementation will require broad support and compromises. The conclusion of whether the adoption of socialism in America will be a positive or negative development remains an open question that will continue to stimulate public debate and research in the future.